Hello, free speech and the challenge of social media students. Dr. Conway here, back for lesson 6 on social media engineering, from marketing to shaping social divisions. This is when we start to move from sort of the free speech legal dynamics and the value of free speech and liberal theory and so on, to now moving the free speech question into the social media environment. And this is, I think, a key stage in the course where we take our narrative now and we start to look at the implications of social media, and in this case social media engineering, for its impacts on some of those theories of free speech and the role of free speech in our democracy and the legal dimensions of free speech that we've talked about so far in filling out our narrative for the course. Okay, so now we're moving into this lesson 6, where we're looking at this question of what impact could social media engineering, or is social media engineering, having on these assumptions about free speech and these assumptions about liberal theory on free speech. Okay, and what implications social media is having for maybe transgressing or transcending some of the legal dimensions that we've explored on free speech with respect to hate speech in other areas. Okay. So, and we, obviously we are suggesting that there are some implications of social media to these things. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a course called Free Speech and the Challenge of Social Media, would we? So let's begin to look at these questions in the context of social media and engineering. Asking these questions, why social media is free yet not free. Okay, how social media algorithms and cookies work and what implications those have for free speech as we conceive of it in the isolated context of liberal theory, or in the context of the way we understand free speech and democracy as a dominant social paradigm. Okay, the implications of social media engineering for free speech is where we want to end up. We want to get a better understanding of that in the context of this particular lesson. All right, so why social media is free but at a hidden cost. Okay, social media platforms are remarkable business models. There's no question about it. They've created some of the richest people in the world today, right? We know that. Okay, but how can they offer something that is free and make billions of dollars? It's amazing the amount of times I've sat around in various settings, and people who are not raised with social media, people who maybe of an older age cohort, will raise that questions. How do these guys, how do you, because I got Facebook and it's free, they would say. It's free, I can log on, I can set up an account, I can start to share pictures with my kids, I can do this, that, and the other thing. How do they do that and make so much money? Right? But the secret lays in the fact that hundreds of millions of social media users are both the recipients of a largely free service, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, not totally free. There are some incremental charges, but basically it appears to be, hey, this is great. It's like a public good, provided by the government. I don't have to pay for it. But they, at the same time that they're active on social media, they're actually giving the social media companies things that make them very wealthy companies, and that is inputs. You're giving them your data as inputs to services and products that are later sold by the social media corporations. Okay, that's how they make money. Item one is understandable to all social media users. Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Google Search, etc. have brought amazing communications and information gathering technology into homes and offices around the world at very low upfront cost. I don't think anybody would disagree with that proposition. There's no question that this has been the case, and this is the beauty of the business model, right? You can offer something for free, but it's actually not for free, and then they trade on it to make billions of dollars after the fact. Okay, but from each discrete individual user, it seems like a pretty beneficial trade-off. You're getting all this free stuff, right? And you're giving a little bit of data, even if you're aware you're giving data. And most people, the studies will still show, most people that use social media are still not aware of how they're being basically monetized. Okay. And this is proven to be a very attractive offering for millions of people, right? However, there's still a blind spot for many, if not most, social media users, right? How is this the case? Mainly because the data trail that social media users produce is gathered without their knowledge in many cases, okay? Or at least they have incomplete knowledge of the social media mechanisms deployed to gather user data and then to sell that data to marketers, to political activists, to any number of different groups, right? Even when social media users are aware of the data trail, which people like I would be and many young people like you would be, they cannot entirely prevent being tracked because of the multiplicity of data gathering mechanisms used by social media platforms, right? Your computer IP address, your cell phone's technical address. You've got all of these techniques they now have that even if you say no to cookies or no to something else, they have other mechanisms for tracking you, tracking your phone, tracking your location, tracking. All of that is invaluable information for marketers, right? Invaluable information for other social groups that are trying to influence political agendas, let's say. Knowing where you go and why you go there is very powerful information, right? If I know that about each and every one of you, I can relate to you in completely different ways than if I didn't know that, right? If I could say, I saw you were out at Tanger Outlet the other day. What were you looking for? I know the big stores out there are Under Armour and Nike. And so you must have been looking for something like that, right? Now all of a sudden my conversation with you completely gets transformed to as compared to a scenario where I didn't know where you were, or I didn't know what you were up to, or I wasn't able to understand what you paid for because I used Apple Pay or Google Pay or something like that, right? I mean, these are enormous resources of information resources that the companies can easily monetize with marketing companies and so on, right? And so this is what's going on, and this is why the data trails that are laid down by social media and that social media is offered to you for free explicitly because they want to generate those data trails because that's how they monetize the billions of dollars they make, and that's basically through what's been termed recently by some scholars as the viral marketing platforms of social media. All right, but what is the implications of that? And that's what we're going to talk. And from free speech and the challenge of social media context, what are the implications of that? And that's what we're going to continue to discuss here today. And of course, the easiest way for social media companies to market this data they're collecting on you is marketing, right? I mean, of course, if I'm selling a product and I'm a large company and this social media company has all this data about what you desire, where you go, what you buy, what you're interested in, what you read on the internet, what you follow, who you support, all of these kinds of things, that is a massively valuable resource for a large company to buy from a social media platform to target their marketing exercises, right? Or to create a marketing campaign and give it to Facebook and give it to these other companies and let them orchestrate it for you, right? Because they can target that budget very specifically because they have all this information on who you are, what you're interested in, where you go, what you buy. All of this stuff, and compare that to an age when a large company selling a product or service had none of that data, and they just had to use blunt instruments like newspapers or radio or television, right? Okay, so these it has completely transformed the marketing environment. Okay. So data provided by social media users deployed to direct the advertising of products and services to the revealed needs and desires of users, something that never occurred before, say except for the last 15 years. Prior to that data was, had to be researched in a number of other different ways and would not nearly have been as precise, okay? That is why when you shop online or at least study products and services online, results from those searches literally follow you around. And other internet, including in other internet searches that are done days later, okay? And so, you look for a pair of running shoes, and then I come back and I go on a vacation for a long week, and I come back, log on, and I'm sort of looking at Google News, or I'm looking at a completely unrelated service. All of a sudden, I see running shoes. all up and down my advertising, because they're directing the advertising specifically to your demonstrated desires, which is what data they collect when you do your internet searches, okay? Whereas traditional newspapers, television, radio, magazine advertising, by contrast, is a very blunt instrument, consuming resources to reach both those who might be interested in your product and those who are not. The beauty of social marketing is it minimizes that waste. It directly targets resources on those people that are going to be most receptive to your message. How do we know that? Because the social media companies have been monitoring you in your use of social media and the internet, okay? Internet generally. So this is why social media can be quote unquote free, right? They add a tremendous value to marketing, and that's why we call them viral marketing platforms, okay? And they were primarily designed for marketing. Let's not kid ourselves, right? And when people were designing Facebook, right? They weren't designing to kind of say, hey, let's create a platform where people can get pictures from their kids, and they can talk about their vacation and to look at my cat and look at my dog. And I'm not belittling all that. That's all very pleasant stuff. But at the end of the day, they didn't design it for that, right? They designed it because they knew that if they could gather all of this information on people through providing these free services, that information was going to be worth billions, if not trillions of dollars. Right, that's the whole concept of why social media platforms arose in the way they did, and for quote unquote free, right? But user data, the big data that the social media companies collect, is anything but free. They charge handsomely for it, right? They don't give it out free. We give it out free when we use social media, even when we're not be conscious that we're giving it out for free. But the social media companies certainly don't give it out for free, right? And this has occurred largely over the last 15 years. Facebook 2006, right? Right? So when Zuckerberg and those guys were designing Facebook, they weren't saying, hey, let's do something nice for people so they can share pictures and they can share messages. No, they had a business model in mind. That business model was, let's collect as much intelligence on the social media user as we can, package it, spin it out, and use it for marketing, or sell it as information packages for other people who will use it for marketing. Okay? So since that time, social media users have expanded both in numbers and intensity of use. So at the same time when they started it out, they gathered some data. The sophistication now in big data collection is just mind-boggling in terms of what they can do now, okay? And this was all occurring, right? This all started to occur, in the 2000s, when at the same time that this sophistication of social media corporations and social media infrastructure was being designed, the cost of data storage was going way down. The technology got real cheap. I remember when I first bought my first computers when I was a graduate student, and the computers were outrageously expensive. And if you got a 256 a megabyte hard drive, you were just like, whoa, that is humongous. And hey, boy, was that ever expensive. Now, go out and buy a flash drive for that for $20 if you're in Asia, right? It's super cheap now, right? So at the same time that these companies came along to generate social media data, right, of the user, the cost of storage got a lot cheaper, right? And these two developments occurring in parallel encourage social media corporations to obtain greater and greater massive stores of social media activity and data from around the world. So now they have huge data banks, like large buildings full of computer storage capacity, right? At various locations around the world, not just one, many. Large data stores, like millions of terabytes of data, okay? That can be collected, all right? And this big data is packaged for resale for any manner of uses that could capitalize on the information. And new technologies were developed in data mining and analytics, because as you got more and more data like unbelievable amounts of terabytes of data. I mean, you needed to develop techniques for mining that data, right? For pulling the information out of it that is useful for the people you're selling it to. So There's been a giant upsurge in data mining technology and data mining capacity. Now you can get degrees in data mining, right? From the best universities in North America and Europe. You can take specialized courses from corporate trainers on data mining, right? I mean, now it's become a whole field, just being able to pull the value out of those massive amounts of data, yeah? But at the same time that this was all occurring and technology was moving ahead, people began to raise privacy concerns about the use of data extracted from social media users. But we were late. Most of that discussion on privacy concerns has really occurred over the last 3-4 years, really, okay? And, the Europeans have been pushing the companies on data mining and the use of confidential private information. And now when Google's trying to acquire Fitbit watches, they're now under competitiveness scrutiny. So the scrutiny is starting to become more intense in terms of how the companies are capitalizing on this data. And there's new requirements for notify. So now you'll notice when you're on a website, they say, we put cookies here. They have to do that by law now. You have to agree to the cookies. But even if you don't agree to the cookies, there are other mechanisms that they use for tracking you with your computer's IP address and so on. So don't let that kid you, okay? But at least there are some protections. And the very fact that that appears on your screen now is at least raising awareness of the average social media user that, hey, whoa, wait a minute, how are they tracking me like this? So people know they're being tracked now, but they don't really, still to this day, they don't understand the full extent of it, right? But in the early days, they had no knowledge. Oh, this is free, this is great. I mean, people were completely unaware that they were being tracked the way they were, okay? Now the laws have come into place where you have to make people more aware, but still the level of awareness of the average social media user as to how this game gets played is still very, very limited, okay? And this was especially, but in 2016 that changed even more, right? Because we had the national election in the United States and the Brexit referendum in the United Kingdom, also in 2016. People were, less sensitive prior to that, but after all the reports came out of how social media big data was being used to influence political agenda, okay, by the Russians in the case of the U.S. election and by right-wing or nationalist groups, not necessarily just right-wing, but by nationalist groups in Britain during the Brexit, people began to, there was, huge blow-up in press, right? Lots of coverage of that, right? So, that's why I say in the last 4 or 5 years, things have changed, 3 to 4 years even, things have changed quite a bit in terms of people's awareness, but that awareness is still not risen to the level of understanding of the true extent of surveillance and tracking that can be done in a social media context with your cell phones, with your computers, with your tablets, any number, with your email. If you use like Gmail or something like that, all of that is being tracked. Okay, it all is being tracked, all right? And that becomes part of social media big data. Now, just because something's being tracked, it doesn't mean it's sinister, right? But it does mean that there's data out there that is shaping the type of dialogue and the type of things you're seeing in your social media experience, because that's what it's designed to do. Social media algorithms are the basis for social media, right? And let me explain what I'm talking about there. Social media algorithms are software technologies. They're mathematical sets of rules that track the social media content that a user engages with and then prioritizes feeds to that user that are consistent with their revealed interests, all right? So algorithms track what a user has clicked, how quickly they do so when presented with the content, how often they do so, and how long they spend time with the content. Is the person quickly clicking through or spending time reading? That's vitally important information. It reveals level of motivation, and they have formulas for assessing this thing. Okay, if you spend so much time on it, how motivated are you? They can come up with what they call a motivation number, or tracking motivation on social media. Okay. Given the huge volume of information generated on social media platforms each minute of the day, these algorithms serve as vital sorting and ranking mechanisms for the feeds of social media users, okay? Obviously, there's terabytes, millions of terabytes of information that are coming up on social media virtually every day around the world, all right? That would be completely overwhelming and completely disorganized if there was not some kind of an organizing principle, which is the algorithm, which basically defines what portion of that content you receive from those millions of terabytes of data that are put up every day. All right? So that would be, it's the only way that social media could function, right? To be meaningful to the user. All right? So these algorithms serve as a vital sorting and ranking mechanism for the feeds of social media users. That's why when you log on, you tend to see all the things that you've displayed interest in the past. You don't see a lot of superfluous stuff, okay? You see stuff that you recognize, that you're comfortable with, that you read, because there's in the background is an algorithm saying, well, this is what this person prefers. So if you're a person that really prefers like fashion-oriented things, you log on to various things, you're going to get a lot of fashion-oriented feeds. If I'm very interested in politics or political economy or science of the environment, which I work in, I tend to see those kind of feeds, all right? Whether I'm on Google News, Apple News, Facebook, feeds that come in from Facebook, feeds that come in from Google when I'm Google searching. All of these things are designed to orchestrate your experience on a social media platform for the purpose of keeping you on there longer, to gather for so more data can gather from you. If it's not orchestrated, you might leave the social media platform more quickly because this is not interesting, or I'm getting a bunch of things that I just find annoying. Social media companies don't like that. Social media companies like to orchestrate your experience on social media so you spend more time on it. That's why you get lots of feeds. Hey, I note that you haven't been on Facebook for a while. You have this many friends that have posted this and that. All designed to enhance, lengthen, and deepen your engagement with the social media platform. And these algorithms are managed by dedicated teams of software engineers, data scientists, and content strategists, all with the focused attention of trying to ensure that the time a user spends on social media is orchestrated by the platform to the greatest extent possible, right? That's how they can control the messaging you're getting. Why do they want to control it? It's not necessarily because I'm Dr. Evil, right? It's because I have an objective. I want to hit you with as many marketing opportunities as I can that are specifically targeted on your previously revealed preferences. That's the business, okay? For this reason, social media algorithms play a vital role in marketing strategies. Each social media platform has its own algorithm design intended to achieve their objectives. Okay? For example, the Facebook algorithm seeks to promote content that creates interaction between friends and family and filters out interactions that inspire less activity of that type. And that's by user. Okay. By contrast, Twitter's algorithm prioritizes timing and relevance, whereby if a user's tweet gets read, circulated, or commented on sooner than others, it is more likely to be seen by a wider range of people who have similar preferences. Okay. Or have revealed similar preferences. Okay. Algorithms shape not only the content that is shown to the user automatically, e.g. Facebook ads, but are also used to suggest research terms or phrases in the Google search bar. Right? You notice if you put part of a word in Google and click and get, search options come down below. Those search options have been informed by previous things you've typed or like things that you've previously searched. Your pull down menu would look quite a bit different than mine. Okay? Because the pull down menu is being shaped by the Google algorithm in a way that reflects your previous areas of interest. Your previously displayed areas of interest. Okay? So, all of these tactics are designed to encourage longer and more frequent stays on the social media platform, such that the platform has more time to expose you to marketing feed and to collect your activity data for packaging and sale. That's the bottom line, and that's how it works. All right. So, and again, one cannot jump automatically to sinister intent, right? But the unintended impacts of that can be significant for purposes of our course, Free Speech and the Challenge of Social Media. And we'll talk about that, okay? And there are other ways that you get tracked around the internet, right? I mean, some of them you'll be well aware of in your group, your age group at this point, right? We all know about cookies or readable identifiers on your computer by the websites you visit, right? That's why when you return to a website, sometimes they already know your language, they already know your preferences. You know, something will come up on the screen that is an advertising that because you already displayed interest in a previous visit to the website. Amazon.ca is a classic example of that, right? I mean, they use cookies to say, hey, you searched for a pair of jeans the last time you were on here, right? And then when you get on the next time, you get advertisements. Hey, Thomas, are you still looking for a pair of jeans? Right? And so this gets very, very orchestrated, okay? They monitor, these website cookies monitor the activities of individual users within the website. A cookie installed on your computer, when it happens, when you log on, there's a cookie that's going to be stored on your computer. Those were the first things that regulators started to attack in terms of social media's behavior, right? Now they require you to notify when cookies are going to be deposited in your computer when you go onto a website. But most people will kind of go, yeah, okay, I just want to see it, and they click, yeah, okay, no problem, right? So, but unless you clear your cache and clear your history, that cookie's in your computer, and the next time you log on to that site, they already know what your preferences are. But even if you clear your cookies, it's too late because that big data has already been stored, right? They've already got that, right? Even if you clear cookies and history occasionally in your computer, it doesn't mean it disappears on your computer, but it doesn't disappear in big data that the social media company has already collected, right? And they can identify you through your name, your IP address, or any other identifier they may be using. And because these cookies can make use of your computer's unique internet protocol. So even if you didn't use your real name or you didn't use you don't think you used any other identifier, they already know that the person with this IP address was looking for jeans, right? So it doesn't take much, right? So even if you say no, it doesn't mean that the data hasn't already been collected, all right? Or is it being collected in another way rather than a website cookie? And I'll talk about that in a minute. And those opportunities are called tracking cookies, right? The more recent developments in cookie technology have expanded the utility of cookies to track users across several websites, monitoring their internet behavior generally. So not just website combined now, right? This is made possible by websites or social media platforms that store third-party cookies from other sites on their computer. So, you can pay Google if you're a company to deposit tracking cookies that allow you the information to see what people who have visited your site regularly, what other sites are they visiting? Do I have any competitors? Do I, what other areas are they spending money? Are they spending money in an area that is highly related to where my product can leverage in and get some of that money for my company? All of these things can be done now, right? And they're known as tracking cookies that serve to provide information to third-party cookie source regarding where the social media has been on the internet, what content they accessed and in what way, right? What content they accessed and in what way is an incredibly valuable resource for a company that might be spending tens of millions of dollars on marketing each year, right? They can make much better use of that $10 million if they can target it that accurately, correct? Okay. For example, the tracking cookies from Facebook, Google, and other social media platforms gather data on the websites that you visited, what you did while on the sites, including what you clicked on, how much time you spent on the item within the site, what are the pages you have opened, how often, etc. Extremely valuable resource. If I know that about every individual I'm trying to influence, that becomes an incredible, information truly is power, and that's what social media companies sell when they offer you a free service, okay? This data becomes part of big data sold as a product, as we previously mentioned, okay, to other entities for social media analytics as well. So, the Trump campaign, the Biden campaign, the Liberal campaign in Canada, the Conservative campaign, the NDP, they will all be using this data to find out what the citizenry are concerned about, to push their buttons in a certain way over issues that they're heated about. All kinds of very sophisticated tactics now occur on the use of this big data, not only in the viral marketing sense, the commercial marketing sense, but also in the political sense and the social sense, okay? So what is it about social media engineering and free speech that we're concerned about? After all, our course is about free speech and the challenge of social media. To a substantial degree, social media has always depended on convincing users that they have anonymity and confidentiality behind their computer screen. We see that every day when we look at comments in newspapers and what other people would say that they would never say face to face, right? And they would say so by putting some other moniker in there and not their own name. We see this every day, right? This is abusive behavior towards any number of groups. That's a standard tactic, okay? So with anonymous ideas, social media users tend to say things online they would never typically say, right? However, algorithms, website cookies, and tracking cookies strip away that anonymity from the perspective of the social media company. They can still track you, right? In ways that most users don't realize, okay? And then they can orchestrate your feeds on social media, and they do orchestrate your feeds on social media. And why is that important to us? Well, I think you can understand the importance when we remember back to our discussion on liberal theory, right? And John Mill's concept of the open, unfettered marketplace of ideas. Social media is engineering specifically designed to not allow that completely open and unfettered feed of information, right? Their whole marketing strategy is that it not be open and unfettered, but directed and orchestrated, all right? So what does that mean to our free speech and the challenge of social media discussion? Okay, remember we said in our narrative that social media should be the age of the greatest free speech in human history. But I asked the question in our earlier lectures, is that what we're seeing? And many scholars and many political actors and many around the world say, no, that's not what we're seeing. And we don't understand why. And now we have a better understanding of what's going on. We do understand why. And part of that why comes from understanding social media engineering, okay? So every time a social media user logs on, they're triangulated for their needs and wants for purposes of being targeted for marketing. But that marketing doesn't just need to be commercial marketing, right? It can be a funnel, a tunnel of reinforcing information, say of a political nature, maybe even an extreme political nature, or maybe of a racist nature, maybe of an anti-environmental nature, or on the other side, maybe positively for protection of the environment, maybe positively for building cultural identity among groups. So again, two-edged sword, right? But let's not be naive that we have this open marketplace of ideas when it comes to social media. We do not. And the social media engineering is specifically designed not to offer that. Okay, it's designed to offer a viral marketing platform that is geared to targeting your interests, not opening up your interests. So focused rather than open marketplace of ideas. And social media platforms do not need your real name to be able to achieve their mission. Right? Some experiments have shown that even when real names are not collected, sophisticated big data analytics can be used to identify the user's name, address, hobbies, health characteristics, marital status, sexual preferences, physical fitness activity, holiday preferences, you name it, right? If they want to target, they can generate an incredibly detailed profile of most social media users, if they're extensive social media, particularly if they put most of their information up. Like, hey, look at where I vacation. Hey, look at how many kids are in Facebook, right? That's why Facebook is such a powerful engine for generating this marketing, because you give them pictures of yourself. You give them pictures of your kids, your dogs, your cats, your travel vacation. It's all up there on Facebook. They pull all that data down. They have all that big data, okay? So, and this can be used for all kinds of influence campaigns that seek to work across borders or for any other purposes, including attacking democracies, out of Russia or China, or any other purpose that they want. They can generate incredibly targeted use of their budget for influencing people, okay? We witnessed this with Russian interference in the 2016 United Nations presidential election, Cambridge Analytica's involvement in the UK Brexit referendum, Chinese propaganda campaigns to shape opinions in other countries regarding the Chinese diaspora, Taiwan, the East China Sea, and so forth. Massive campaigns. Big data and search engine optimization techniques has allowed misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda efforts in pursuit of these goals I just mentioned to be that much more effective. Right? Now you can target disinformation to people who are prone to conspiracy theories. How do I know that? Well, they're visiting conspiracy theory sites. They're commenting on conspiracy theories. I have all that big data. I've collected it all. Right? I can now zero in on deepening that silo of conspiracy theories. Right? That's why Facebook, Twitter, and others are now banning QAnon because that's because they know that the data they collect on that can reinforce this negative activity. All right, so these social media companies are now being under intense pressure to be more socially and politically responsible, and they're having to rise to that challenge, which is not easy, right? Because they collect millions of terabytes of data every day. How do you filter all that to determine, that you want to ban some of it as opposed to other components that are okay? These are the challenges that we face, right? So, and then algorithms are also influenced by sophisticated users of big data, right? SEO, search engine optimization techniques. If you talk to any marketing company, one of that uses social media extensively or sells their services based on their knowledge of social media, they will immediately talking about SEO. We understand the SEO of social media companies, so we can influence what you write or the slides you present or your ad to hit keywords and so on, to even more further focus onto people who have demonstrated through their previous social media experience and activities that they're highly interested in this. We know how to do that. That's how they market their services, the marketing companies. Google up any marketing company that professes expertise in social media, and you will see SEO all over that website. Okay? Because that's basically a way that people try to understand the algorithms that these companies are using to challenge certain channels, certain types of information to you and not other information. And these marketing companies say that we have the sophistication to understand that algorithm and manipulate its outcomes. Okay, and that's essentially what they're saying, okay? And these create filter bubbles, right? Influence operations are made more powerful by these filter bubbles or social media silos. And the whole thing is designed to be a silo, okay? That's the whole point, to direct, viral marketing to the person that's going to be more receptive to it. And the reason that they do that is to save on marketing dollars. Why would I want to waste my marketing dollars on marketing to somebody who's never going to buy my Jaguar? But when I market, if I'm going to spend $10 million on my marketing budget, and Facebook comes to me and says, I can direct that to the guys that we know or the people we know are actually searching for a Jaguar. The newspaper can't give me that. The radio can't give me that. Even the TV can't give me that. But the social media companies can can filter bubble this or social media silo this right to the people we know based on their previous social media activity are going to be keenly interested in this. Okay? And these phrases, the filter bubbles or social media silos, attempt to describe the outcomes of social media algorithms and cookies, right? When you shop for shoes online, advertisements for them follow you around the internet. The same is true for political information, and this is where we get into free speech and the challenge of social media. The same is true for political information accessed by users, resulting in social media platforms targeting that user with the same types of information. If you're known to frequent conspiracy theory sites or far right sites or far left sites or whatever the case may be, you will get feeds that reinforce that desire. All right? Once in this bubble or silo, people tend to get more of what they react to, because that's the way the algorithms and cookies are designed. Okay? And this is influenced by this big data that collected their earlier social media clicks information. Okay? So the problem is the same social media infrastructure that gives people what they want in the commercial sphere tends to foster biased and closed-mindedness in the political and social spheres. Remember, free speech was supposed to be building consensus, supposed to advancing common understandings of the common good, all of those things. And social media may in fact be limiting free speech in terms of its values it creates to a democracy, well, rather than reinforcing those strengths, which is one of the unique challenges of social media when we say free speech and the challenge of social media, right? We may actually be dividing and restricting free speech in terms of understanding it from the collective, everybody in the society, rather than building consensus and common understanding and sharing the same information. We may be from completely different worlds if we're heavy social media users. You might be getting constant feeds that feed you all conspiracy theory. I might be getting constant feeds that feeds me all academic things or research things, and we might be talking completely different languages rather than the marketplace of ideas that John Stuart Mill proposed. And that's because the very engineering of social media is designed explicitly to do that. Okay? People hear the same messages repeatedly by design and are isolated from alternative messaging. That's what social media will do. Unless you actively go to search outside your bubble or outside your silo, you will continue to get reinforcement of the same ideas. Okay? So while John Stuart Mill's writing suggested that there should be a competition in the marketplace of ideas and that this is good for liberty and democracy, the reality is that filtering effective social media platforms has transformed communications. Ironically, despite social media's potential, there's ample evidence to suggest that we are not witnessing a revitalization of the marketplace of ideas so much as an orchestration of content feeds intended to isolate people from that very competition. That's the whole point. If I'm looking for shoes, I don't want to receive advertisements on women's hats. If I'm looking for research on a particular political question, I'm not looking for the latest conspiracy theory. And social media knows that. And that's why I don't get a lot of conspiracy theories on my feed. I never see QAnon. I never see these, because my feed, if you pulled the big data on me, it would look at things that you would expect that it would look at, being a researcher, right? On social and political economic issues. All right. So this is why we define the challenge of social media when we're talking about free speech, because we've laid out the foundations for why free speech is important to democracy. So now we ask the question: is social media actually good for democracy as we have previously conceived it? Right? And do we need new conceptions or new paradigms? You remember the term paradigms to understand what's going on here. Information does not circulate widely and freely as social media era would lead us to believe. And this limits free speech's role in supporting democracy. We see it. Okay? We will pick this. We pick up this theme more as we go into misinformation and disinformation in social media, and on the science and social psychology of social media behavior. Okay? So when those two other lessons will expand on this concept. All right? So on that, I'll let you go. A very important topic, because we have to understand social media itself to be able to understand what the challenges is with respect to free speech, okay? And that is in the structures and the processes, the engineering of social media gives us understanding that more deeply gives us a much better understanding of what that challenge is when we say free speech and the challenge of social media. I've indicated one aspect of that challenge here, which is that, well, John Stuart Mill talked about the open marketplace of ideas. Social media is clearly designed to, in fact, not do that, right? It is designed to target viral marketing, and that's why it was designed in the first place. All right, and that's how they make their money. So that's unlikely to change anytime soon. So what does this mean to our course on free speech and the challenge of social media? And we pick up those questions when we begin to talk a little bit more about misinformation and disinformation and science on the social psychology of social media behavior. On that, I'll let you go. Take care, gang. See you next time. Bye-bye.